So if we want to add styling, we want to either put in styles or we want to add a class attribute to either one of these text boxes. We need to be able to do that and inject those attributes right into our helper. So flip back to Visual Studio, and we'll see here that if we come to the end, we can do comma, and there are overloads to these helpers. Different ones have different overloads. So for the text box, the one that we're looking at now is the first parameter is an expression, which is this lambda expression. Comma, and then the next thing that it takes is an object, which it calls HTML attributes. Now, you may kind of be like, it wants an object of HTML attributes. What does that mean? What it's looking for is what's referred to as an anonymous type. And the way that you create an anonymous type is that you use the keyword new followed by a set of curly brackets. And what that does for you is allows you to create in line a new object without declaring a class first. It's only good within the scope of where it's executing, and it cannot be passed out of a function, and nor can it be, what's the word I want to use? It can't be inherited. It can't do any of the regular functionality of a class. It's basically a quick and dirty way to package up data and do something with it. And one of the things that we can do with it is we can declare the additional parameters that we want to put into, or I'm sorry, not parameters, the additional attributes we want to put into our HTML. So new, curly bracket, we can say style, border, colon, solid, 1 pixel red. We'll save that. And what we're basically doing here is a key value pair. Style is the name of the attribute that I want to inject, and then border, colon, solid, 1 pixel red is the value that I would traditionally put in as a style for my text box. So if we flip back and reload, my box now has a 1 pixel border that is red. If we look at the HTML of that, it looks something like that. So there is style equals border, colon, solid, 1 pixel red. So the helper goes through and actually takes that anonymous type and using reflection parses it into a key value pair and then injects it into the HTML markup. So it actually goes through that process for us and helps us build that out. Something that I do more commonly than use style is I like to, excuse me, is I like to put in my CSS classes. Now, class is an interesting keyword. This class means a lot of different things in a lot of different languages. Now, we're in C# right now. So a class is a declarative statement used when you define a type, when you create a class. So in this context, it's saying, whoa, 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 you can't put class here because you're not declaring a new class. You're not creating a type. You're not making an object. You are using it incorrectly. Let's say that I want to make this form controlled. To fix that, there's actually an escape keyword or an escape character that you can use within your C# code. Anybody know what that character is? Yeah. At symbol. So you stick an at symbol in front of it, and you've basically escaped that keyword. So now when the compiler and everything runs, it will look at it as the word, or the property in this case, of class. It's not looking at it as a keyword class. The close parenthesis there for my anonymous type, save, flip back, and I'll refresh. And now I have a stylized text box. That form-control pulls from the Bootstrap library and gives me a prettier looking text box than my standard input box. And that overload exists with pretty much all of the HTML helpers. Password has the same, and there's additional things in here too. You can pass a dictionary of key values. This dictionary is what internally happens to that anonymous type. It gets converted into a dictionary and then gets pumped into the HTML markup. So here we'll say new class form control. We flip back and refresh. We now have two stylized text boxes. Looks a lot prettier than what we had originally. The buttons go the same way. Granted, there's no button helper, but we can come in here and say class btn default. That's a Bootstrap thing again. Refresh, and now we have a prettier looking button. One more time, this always on or always login box, we can replace that with a helper. So at html.checkbox4, and this will be for the always login. We'll put a class form control. Refresh. Oh, that's right. That one's not very pretty. Gives you a giant little checkbox. The one thing you run into, and we don't have to do, that's the styling part. We can take the style part off. Refresh again. And get back a regular sized checkbox. So one of the things that happened though is in this process is I lost the ability to click on that label. That label no longer triggers the checkbox like it did before. And the reason for that is if we jump into the HTML and inspect, well, first of all, you'll notice there's a whole lot more markup there now than there was before. So we have input data-val is true, data-val required equals always on login field is required. ID is always login, name is always login, type is checkbox, and value is true, which was the part that we were missing last week. Below that is an input field with the name of always login. The type is hidden and the value is set to false. So there's actually two elements on this page now that have the same name. And then the third thing that I want you to notice is the label. It says for remember me. Well, the for reference the ID of the checkbox. Well, the checkbox is no longer called remember me. It's now called always log in. So to get those to sync up together, we can use another helper that will help us do that. So I'm going to go ahead and push this label down because it doesn't matter. And then under this for, I'm going to delete the text, and I'm actually going to call a helper within the attributes quotes. So I'm going to say for equals, and then I'm going to say at HTML.id4 x dot always on, or always log in. So my HTML helpers don't just generate tags, but they can just generate values. And you may say, well, what's the big deal there? I could have always typed always log in. True. But if Microsoft decides to change the way that they generate their IDs for their elements or their names for their elements, and you make an assumption that always log in is going to be the name, Well, your assumption may one day be wrong, and then you do a server upgrade or a redeployment or some change to your code, you push it out, and all of a sudden, boom, it breaks. And all of these statically set names and IDs that you had in your code don't work, and you lose functionality. Your JavaScript stops working, this stops working, who knows? So utilizing this kind of puts all the eggs in that basket to say, okay, Microsoft, I'm leaving it up to you to generate my HTML tags. Therefore, I'm leaving it up to you to also give me the IDs for those elements that you generate. Or if you write your own, maybe you change up the way that that works and you want to be consistent. So you're leaving it up to the programmer, so to speak, instead of trying to guess what they're doing. So with that change, we'll save. Refresh again. And now we can click on that label. We inspect the element, and we'll see now that that ID for that element is embedded. So that's still a simplistic kind of version. But that's the idea of where these helpers come into play and can help you.